On the workbench tonight, we have a great example for the kind of equipment that ruined the reputation of the Fisher brand. This is the studio standard by Fisher integrated stereo amplifier model CA-223R. And this is anything but studio standard. You know you're dealing with a very, very basic piece of equipment when the manufacturer was desperate enough to advertise the input selector on the front. Let's take a look at the rest of the features. We have a power switch, we have a headphone jack, we have a 5-band graphic equalizer, and a balance control. Another slider control is the volume control. This does have a loudness curve to it, and you cannot turn the loudness off. It's always in circuit, so that alone disqualifies this as a studio standard piece of equipment. Over here we have the only LED on the whole entire unit, the power LED. That's all you get. There are provisions for some more LEDs behind of these input selector things, these little symbols, but those were not fitted. And you got this very plasticky mechanical input selector switch. At least you do get a proper tape monitor function. This is on the back, made in Japan, most likely by Sanyo. But aside from that, over here we have our inputs and outputs. We have a phono input, and that does have a proper preamplifier. Nothing else until we get over here. We get one set of speaker outputs. These are spring-loaded, so they are the nice variety of those connectors, at least. Down there is the AC in, and up above we have another sign for quality. This also contains the power supply for the matching cassette deck, the matching tuner, and the matching record player. It sure doesn't get any better when you take the top cover off. Let's start with the obvious. We have the power transformer right there. Keep in mind, this is for a whole entire stereo system, not just the amplifier. We have our main circuit board right there. Heatsink, input selector, very plasticky, as I already said. Up there is where some additional LEDs could go. There is our single little power LED. We have another circuit board right there in the front with the equalizer and tone controls on it, and then power switch and headphone jack on that circuit board right there. Some nice attention to detail. I'm not going to say that the Fisher or Sanyo engineers didn't try. As you can see, they packed the tone control circuit board, most of it at least, in this aluminum coated cardboard, so it does have some shielding in there. Of course, the all plastic front does not provide that. We have, of course, the main amplifier circuit right there, power supply over here. This is quite ridiculous. I don't think I've ever seen filter capacitors that small on an amplifier. These are only 2200 microfarads. Isn't that pathetic? We do have the phono amplifier right there, the phono preamplifier. Uses one single op-amp right there. Another op-amp is in the tone controls, that is sitting right there, of course on the other side of the circuit board. And that appears to be it. On the bottom there is one nice detail. You get a service access door. You take that off and it reveals the output amplifier. This is an STK4132 Mark II stereo amplifier, most likely also made by Sanyo. Mounting it inside of such an access panel certainly does make sense, because these things commonly are not short circuit proof. So when you short out the speaker, you gotta replace them. And while this is a cheap piece of equipment, it is nice to see that it does have plenty of fuses. Speaker fuses, secondary output fuses for the amplifier, and secondary output fuses for all the other equipment. The only thing that's missing is a primary fuse on that transformer. The moment you've all been waiting for, let's turn this thing on and see what happens. We got our little power LED over there. That's the only thing that we're going to get out of this amplifier. This does not have a speaker protection, so no relays are going to click. Let's see if the STK type output chip is any good. Let me hook up this multimeter to the speaker output so that we can see if there is any unwanted DC. Not on this channel, that's nice. And over on the other channel, no offset either, or very minor offset. So let's hook up some speakers. Cheap and cheerful, as they say. I hooked up a CD player and a couple of speakers, and what do you know? It works. All the controls, that includes the slider switches and the input selector, are going to need contact cleaner. They are quite scratchy. I found out the IC, the STK IC, does have an overcurrent protection. I can demonstrate that. If I turn up the bass and the volume, as you can clearly hear, the amplifier starts cutting out when it thinks that things are getting too loud. So that's nice to know. There is at least a little bit of a protection in this. Cleaning the input selector switches is easy enough. There is a groove up on top. We can just spray the contact cleaner into there, operate the switch plenty of times, and that's it. Same goes for these switches. That should be good again as well. When it comes to cleaning the slider controls, it actually is quite a nice thing that this is such a cheap and simple design. On more sophisticated equipment, we would now have to take out circuit boards, tear it all apart. On this one, as you can see, from the outside we can look straight down into the potentiometer, into the slider control. So we're just going to apply some contact spray down into there, operate the control a few times, and that should be good. Repeat the same thing over here. Those slider controls should be good to go again. The volume control uses the same simple design, so it is the same process. And that's it. The so-called studio standard by Fisher model CA-223R amplifier is back together and it's working. It can go quite loud too. Well, that's it. Thanks for watching.